Any feeling, doesn't matter. As long as you show yourself that you can choose. Just generate a feeling, a state of being. Pick one. I suggest bliss, but if you have issues with bliss, then maybe you have less issues with depression. You can choose depression. Depression is more comfortable. You can choose that. Anxiety. Many people are very comfortable with anxiety. You can choose that too. You can choose a sense of love, perhaps, if you don't have any issues with it. Which, again, just means you don't believe any negative idea about it. Then you can just let it come in. You cannot choose the state of being that you have resistance towards. So if you cannot choose bliss for some reason, then there must be a resistance. If you cannot choose happiness, if you cannot choose to be nicely grounded, happy, free, alive, awake, then you must have a negative connotation.
Yesterday, February 21st, 3x members of an alleged abusive cult led by the self-proclaimed spiritual teacher Bintinho Massaro posted a series of statements on Instagram, each sharing how they became followers and finally broke free. Despite reportedly signing NDAs for $100,000 or more, they said that they wanted to expose a pattern of psychological and spiritual warfare within Massaro's following, in the hope that he will be brought to justice. The trio, yoga and meditation teacher Jade Electra, artist Keelan McNeil, and Jacqueline Graham also shared their respective experiences with the so-called cult in statements on a joint website titled The Mirror Effect. In blog posts on the site, McNeil describes helping grow Bintinho's company, Trinfinity Academy, a partnership that would end with extreme emotional, psychological, mental, physical, and financial damage, while Graham describes an awakening that came after more than a year in an abusive relationship with Bintinho, prompted by the NXIVM documentary The Vow. Electra, meanwhile, directs readers to a recent episode of the podcast A Little Bit Culty, in which she details what it's actually like to date the cult leader, who she describes as a predator, hiding in the mask of a messiah. Prior to becoming a charismatic cult leader, Massaro was born in Amsterdam, and apparently discovered his interest in spirituality aged 10, after his parents passed along the books they were reading in their own investigation of self, help and spirituality. In his teenage years, he sought enlightenment via various teachers, but by 25 he had decided to move to America and broadcast his own views as an algorithm-friendly preacher. The recent revelations, however, aren't the first time that the millennial guru has sparked controversy with his plans to ignite global awakening and establish an enlightened civilization ready for interstellar absorption by 2035. In the past, several publications have dug beneath the glossy online image that he crafted throughout his 20s, with coverage picking up in the wake of an alleged suicide at one of his 12-day Sedona retreats in 2017. As the story broke on social media, critics also began referring to him as Steve Jobs meets Jim Jones, in reference to the preacher who led a mass murder-suicide in his Guyana commune in 1978. Press coverage that exposed troubling details about Massaro's meetings and manipulation of attendees in Arizona eventually prompted him to leave the U.S. for his native Holland, according to a 2018 Truly profile, which also sees him claim he can change the weather at will. There, he continued to hold week-long residential retreats. "It's about giving up everything you have," he said in the promotional materials. This included between €899 and €1,699 in cold, hard cash. Now, though, Massaro has largely retreated from in-person events, though he continues to share teachings via social media, like Wild Country's Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh and Ma Anand Sheila before him. He also seems to enjoy flexing the wealth he's earned from his followers.
You can have this whole other experience of yourself that you've never had before. See if you can sense the peace where I come from. The peace that I have access to, and then you can access it yourself.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Let's get weird.
Let's get connected.
Dance for 2 hours.
Is this your first Bintinho event?
Yes, I immediately got hooked. I started listening to him every day.
It was an intelligence that amazed me. The connection is something special there.
They're not really concepts that you can understand with the mind. When people have like a laughter or crying, it's because they're really feeling the energy that is in between the space of those words.
Things like this start with who will look for answers? People that are suffering.
The whole reason we even know about you guys is because the media trashed you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think they think you're a cult?
From my perspective, it's like, let's talk. Like, if I'm in a cult, like, I'll admit that I'm in a cult. Like, that's okay. Let's just talk. What is it exactly? Like, because this is adding a ton of value to my life.
We've arrived in the Netherlands. We're here for a sort of spiritual self-help retreat run by a 30-year-old self-styled guru, Bentinho Massaro. He's amassed a pretty big following online on his various platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Massaro claims to have first found spirituality at age 10 and went on to seek enlightenment in his teenage years, exploring different philosophies, teachers, and methods, until he reached the conclusion that these spiritual authorities were no more enlightened than himself. So he began his own teaching, and today encourages his followers to become enlightened and empowered through his Trinfinity Academy, with a goal of creating what he calls an enlightened civilization by the year 2035. He's gained a global audience who travel thousands of miles to attend his in-person retreats for as much as $2,000 a pop. Bentinho's social feed sells a lifestyle we all want: adventure, success, glamour, wellness.
Within our hearts, we already know who it is we want to be.
He touts himself as a spiritual leader for the next generation.
I love you.
But he's unlike other spiritual gurus.
Fuck your relationships. They mean nothing.
Set your standards a little higher. Feel a little bit more miserable about yourself when you're being fucking retarded.
And that's meant he hasn't been without his critics. He was recently based in Arizona, where he became mired in a scandal. A since-removed Medium article was published by a writer who attended one of his retreats, reporting what she described as cult-like practices, including promotion of fringe ideas, like joining forces with our alien counterparts, his purported telekinetic powers, and what she called normalized abuse. We decided to go see Bentinho in his homeland, the Netherlands. We've come here to dip a toe in his world firsthand, to see whether he and his followers are in fact onto something the rest of us are missing out on. Okay, so we're approaching the venue. It's a castle, and it's really nice. It's extremely pleasant here, I must say. So we're waiting at the gates of the venue where everyone's checking in. It's kind of a very relaxed, gradual check-in. People are coming in dribs and drabs. The thing doesn't kick off for a couple of hours, but it's a very chill vibe, you know. Everyone arriving is kind of fresh-faced and relaxed. Some people are carrying yoga mats. Everyone's super friendly, like smiling at us, like intense, glowing eyes. Why do you like Bentinho? What about it works for you?
When I start listening to him, for example, when I drive to work, my days are more in alignment and things just flow easily and crazy shit starts happening, basically.
To make sense of all the hype around Bentinho, I sought out his coordinator for the event, Adrian. Can you give any insight into sort of what's going to be taught this week or what we can expect?
Yeah, this is so hard. I mean...
It's okay, I'm sorry. Why is it hard?
Because I've never actually had to explain it to someone before. So the title of the retreat is called Infinity and Absolute Abundance. So one of the main teachings that Bentinho has had for years now is the moving towards the highest understanding that we have of who God is or of the Creator. And so infinity is a way of expressing that. Yeah, it's just a word, right? But we have to use words, and that's like sort of a good word.
Do you think that because the way that Bentinho teaches is so new and unique that there almost isn't a way yet to describe it.
One of the things that the people love so much about him is his ability to explain things in a way that people in modern times understand it, especially younger people, millennials.
In general, I was none the wiser as to what I could expect from the retreat. I couldn't seem to get a straight, concrete explanation from anyone I spoke with. Maybe it had to be experienced to be understood.
Things are finally about to kick off. We're in the main hallway where the kind of action happens, and now we're just waiting for Bentinho. How are you? So good. We hug. So you're having a meeting?
Mm-hmm. Just a little team vibing, you know?
And we're allowed to be there?
Yeah, for sure.
Can you give me any insight into like what I might hear or what kind of themes or topics or anything, or is it a surprise?
Sure. Well, I will be laying out some of that tonight during the session, but right now I'll attend to this.
Yeah.
Because we also have to get...
Yeah, do your thing. We don't want to hold you up.
Sweet.
All right, thank you. I finally met Bentinho himself. He came in flanked by his security guards, but just came straight up to me and was extremely personable, just seemed like a normal dude, not like a big, meaningful spiritual leader who commands loads of attention and lots of followers. I'm yet to see him like do his thing, but he was perfectly pleasant.
You made it. Silence is very addictive, huh? Get immersed in it, starts to feel really good, expansive. So one of the most important things to make this whole life sustainable, especially when you start waking up, spiritually speaking, and you start seeing through the illusions of the matrix, both the matrix as well as the matrix, the grand illusion of form, of matter, of that which changes, that which comes and goes.
As Bentinho addressed the audience, I whipped out my phone and began frantically taking down as many notes as I could, because I was unfamiliar with much of the jargon and found him almost impossible to follow.
Enlightenment or self-realization is the path retracing those steps, those man-made steps, until one finds experientially, instinctively, intuitively, meditatively, the source of one's being, which is transpersonal.
Bentinho had spoken a lot of easy-to-claim New Age buzzwords that weren't in fact all that revolutionary, but it was the way he'd strung those words together that was confusing to me.
Those creatures that make up our body are second-density beings. They're creatures, cellular life forms. Try to find a rainbow and put it in a pot, you'll fail 9 out of 10 times. Does that make sense?
I have to say, a lot of it went over my head. I didn't find it that accessible, so to me, I have a few questions about that.
I felt like I was back in math class. The numbers looked familiar, but the equations didn't make sense to me. What then was new here? And if nothing new, what were we paying for? So with that in mind, I decided to try to seek some clarity direct from the source, while his bodyguard drove us across the grounds.
I can think of 500 people who would kill me for the chance to sit with you in a golf cart.
If we sit here, we can continue dialoguing. Yeah. Who knows what arises.
How long have you had bodyguards? What's that like?
Actually, I generally only have had them in my Dutch retreats, because they're usually bigger events, so I need a little bit more of a buffer. And also, we've received some threats for people we don't know and that kind of stuff. It's, I'd say 60% that. It's 20% I really like this guy, and 20% just in case.
You said to me the other day, when you were on stage, you had an idea of how you could possibly show me something practically to help me get some insight.
I don't know about the practical part,
right.
But when you become extremely present and
clear-minded. Your energy field, if you will, starts operating like a mirror.
Okay, I'm ready for it. Let's get weird.
Let's get connected.
Let's get connected.
When we are silent, we get to see ourselves, every bit of it. The more silent you become, the more you see. The more you move, the more you navigate, the more you create stuff, the less you tend to see. Don't make it about any of the concepts. They're just tools to drop you in. If you can be with silence, go deeper and deeper into the silence, the stillness of being, it will teach you everything you need to know.
Is what you teach, what you offer, is it almost like a form of therapy?
Well, over the years, I've developed, I guess you could say, different levels, because you're always working with individuals who are at a different stage of being comfortable with who they truly are versus thinking that there's something they're not. And you could say that the more beginning levels, in a way, deal with therapy, because people need to have that basic understanding that all is well, that it's okay to feel the discomfort. But beyond that, I mean, spirituality goes beyond therapy, for sure.
The world has already changed a lot in recent years. The digital era has made us more aware of our anxieties than ever, and we're losing faith in conventional solutions. So where do we turn when regular therapy and medication is losing our trust? And as more people are willing to pay for the wellness fix, it's people like Bentinho who can reap the benefits. Something as basic as shared silence, which need not carry a price tag, is being commodified in a way that can create barriers to simple and healthy practices. Practices like yoga, meditation, and if you're so inclined, ecstatic dance.
Ecstatic dance is an amazing dancing experience. And for that we have 3 basic ingredients. There's no shoes, there's no booze, and there's no talking. Which means we will dance 2 hours.
Call me a bad sport, but sober, euphoric techno discos are not really my scene. It's just not how I choose to let off steam or express my true self. After an hour, I was ready to call it a night.
I'm still trying. I'm still wide open, trying to understand what this is all about. Today, I listened to more of Bentinho's talk. I grasped little bits, but I still don't find it very accessible, which is disappointing. But generally positive vibes, and tomorrow's another day. So we're on our way to breakfast, which every day is silent. So that's going to be pretty nice, I hope. Probably not that practical if you have kids or whatever, but I'm looking forward to it.
While I can appreciate the value of a bit of quiet me time, I was having trouble figuring out what, apart from his lectures, sets this apart from the plethora of meditative practices available to us anywhere in the world. Is this just a new take on a not-so-new thing?
So there's a water fight happening to my right and a volleyball game to my left. Wow, what fun. It looks so fun, right? Do you play this every day?
No.
Whose idea was it?
Some other volunteers.
It's so
They just said, let's fill some water balloons, and then we ran out there.
It's like being a kid again,
Yes, right.
right? One of the things that you do or have done is say people have to be okay with feeling uncomfortable and being offended, right?
Oh, in general, in life, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing to develop.
Right, and yet you're saying this in 2018 when it seems like the next generation of young people, it's all, easily offended. Have you thought about that?
Definitely. And I
Just as he preaches about purifying the self in YouTube seminars and shares spiritual teachings via Telegram, all for the low price of $199 per month, he uses Instagram to project a Jack Dorsey-esque image of success, spanning various exotic locales. Some photos show him meditating in loose-fitting gym clothes, and others see him puffing on a cigar in a three-piece suit, all accompanied by pseudo-spiritual inspirational captions. Of course, Electra McNeil and Graham's Instagram posts tell a very different story, with the former followers scratching his face out of their own group photos. He is a walking dementor, and I am standing up and sharing the truth, because too many are abused and stuck behind the fear, the bullying that occurs in cults, and their literal gag orders students are given before they even know what will happen to them, writes Electra, going on to suggest that the spiritual community has allowed such abuse to flourish. Over the course of the years it became increasingly, and eventually blaringly obvious, that Bintinho Masaro's intention is to not actually help the planet or others, but it is to use his mission or organization to get what he wants, which is only women, money, and power, adds McNeil, who says that he and Massaro came to think of each other as best friends. I want you all to know that the psychological and spiritual warfare that takes place behind closed doors and within Bintinho Masaro's community is extremely dark and dangerous. People are giving up their free will under the guise of transcending their egos, and Bintinho Massaro is exploiting them in every way that he can. As a result,